Hey guys, welcome to another JRPG video. This video is going to be a more biographical video. And so instead of being more about a certain topic, it's going to be more about my life and why, as you saw in the title, why I got into game collecting. I'm making this video because everyone has a story about why they got into game collecting or why they started playing video games to begin with. And everyone's story is something that's very dear to them, and I feel that that should be explored. So in this video, I'm going to focus on, as the title suggests, why I got into game collecting. So without any further ado, let's get started. I started playing video games at a very young age, maybe about 4 or 5. And when my first console was a Sega Genesis, we played probably Sonic 1, but I have footage that you're probably seeing right now of me playing Sonic 2 at about 4 or 5 years old, something like that. And Sonic 2 at that point was probably out for a year or two, something like that. Anyway, I remember as kids, going to video stores with my dad and not really paying attention to things. I mean, we were kids, so we would kind of just wander around and do like kids do, the thing like kids, they spin around, like they stick their arms out and spin around, just be kids. So I remember going to a video store with my dad, and he was talking to the clerks and like finding out something about games, and I just remember screwing around. I have several memories of this at different times in my life, but nothing too specific. I remember after the Sega Genesis, I want to say we got a Super Nintendo, which later my parents gave away. And then from that point forward, the N64 had come out, and so my parents had talked to us about trading in, and I think we didn't really understand the concept of trading in at that point, so we were, fine with it. And so we had eventually got an N64, and so for Christmas one year, my parents had wrapped up the N64 box. And, after opening it, or, you've seen the video with the kid opening up N64, kids opening up N64, whatever. You probably experienced that too, maybe. Anyway, I remember opening it, and then my dad was saying that he had it hooked up. And so we were playing Star Fox. That was our first game, Star Fox 64 on the 64. I remember playing that Christmas Day in our basement. Then years after that, the GameCube came out. We traded in our 64 for the GameCube. And every time a new console would come out, we would trade up. That's typically what people do. Even in the automotive industry, that's what people do. They take their old car, they trade up, add a little bit of money to it, and get a newer version of something, right? But the thing is that game collecting for people is more of a calling back to that nostalgia, I think. Growing up, you have fond memories of games that you used to play. And I think nowadays that's why on new consoles like the Wii, for instance, Wii U, whatever, point being is that even the 3DS, they have the virtual console to where you can buy all the old games. And so I think the reason why that's implemented is so that people don't have to go back and go buy the console and go track down the game, etc. But some people, they like to relive that feeling in that sense. Hey, I can play this game no big deal. But some people who are purists like myself, unfortunately, you know, I want to have the game tangibly in my hand, be like, you know, I can put it in the N64 and be like, hey, I can play this the way I used to play this on an old CRT TV, just like how I used to. But back to my story though, like I was saying, you know, we would trade up, and I regretted it because, you know, there were some games that we used to have, and we would trade in some games, you know, you would trade in like 3 or 4 games and get one new one, and it's like, you know, when you walk away from it at the end of the day, it's really not worth it. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe not that first day, but in the long run, you know, you trade in like a few games and you only have like 1 or 2. And you know, I didn't realize this until I had a 360, and literally my game collection was this picture that you're seeing right here. And at the time, I was very proud to have that many games, you know. And as time went on, I traded in some of those games and got new ones. But you know, it was around that time that I thought about it, and I was like, you know, there's tons of games that I used to have that I couldn't play anymore. You know, I had a 360, so what retro could I play? Stuff on Xbox? If I wanted to play something older, I would have to go and buy the console. I would have to buy like a Wii, for instance, and play it on the virtual console. And at that, you know, some of those virtual console games, they're limited too. They don't have all the games. It's a good feeling nowadays to be able to pick up a game that I used to play as a kid and be able to play it whenever I'd like. Yeah, it takes up a lot more room, but then at the same time, you know, it's nice to see you having a collection that your younger self would be jealous of, and all over it. I've made my other videos about game collecting tips, tricks, and secrets that if you'd like more information, you can check out those videos, and hopefully those videos will help you out in accumulating your collection. But again, I just wanted to talk about how rewarding I think it is. People who have traded in games know where I'm coming from with some of these feelings. You know, you have regret. You wish you didn't trade in that game. You wish you could have gone back and played it. And it's like you think about the past more than you think about the one game that you traded in. Well, one game that you traded in all your other games for, or a couple of your other games, and it's like I can never go back. Like for instance, I traded in Split Second for the 360 from that picture that I showed before. I don't have that game anymore. I still have yet to pick it up. And so I can never play that game until I actually go and buy it. And to some that may not seem like a big deal, but you know, I do have memories of it, and I like playing it. It's like recently, I had the opportunity to buy some games. They clearanced a bunch of games at a local game store called Games Plus here in Houston, and all these games were clearanced at $1. Well, at the time, their Wi-Fi had gone out, and so they couldn't charge any cards, so you could only pay in cash. Well, I only had $2, and luckily my girlfriend had some change, so I was able to pick up 2 games that were reminiscent of my childhood, 2 sports games nonetheless, but games that I remember. And actually one of those games I've been avidly trying to find to add to my collection, which is this game here, actually, Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey. As I said before, you know, I feel like it's an ongoing theme, but with game collecting, I feel like my inner child, who I used to be, can now live on, kind of, with this huge library of games. I mean, I don't have the time to play all the games that I have now. I'd like to, but at the same time, there's games that I have, and I keep looking over at my collection. The games that I do have now are not only worth a good amount of money, and they're a solid investment, but it's nice to be able to be like, you know, if I want to play Banjo-Kazooie today, because I remember playing Banjo-Kazooie at my eye doctor's, and I want to relive those feelings, I can. And so it's just a nice feeling to be able to play games that you grew up with. If that's where that nostalgic feeling comes in. And I mean, you look at anybody who recently may have purchased an old console and started playing a game that they used to play a long time ago, and all the feelings that it brings back, to be able to pull up those feelings at any time, whenever I want, is almost like being able to travel back in time. That's kind of what I wanted to address in this video. That nostalgic feeling that some may not know. And I mean, this might have been covered in other videos, but no one's got my story, just like no one has your story. And so that's why I think that it's important to have a story and to hold on to the story, hold it very dear. That's why I justify it as a hobby that's worth getting into. Like I said, it's good to put some money away, but also not just that, but it's like I can play games that I can beat games that I've never played before. I've never beaten a Sonic game. That's actually something that I want to do sometime soon, is actually beat a Sonic game on my own without cheat codes or anything. I hope this video gave you a glimpse into an older person's life and kind of give you an idea of why I game collect and why I think you should too. If it's something you're interested in and you'd like to have some games, or even if it's not something that to live in the past a little bit, but just, you know, have games that you like, by all means, I say do it. So that's my story on how I got into game collecting. I hope you guys enjoyed my story, and down below in the comments, let me know your story. Tell me about how you got into game collecting, or your recent memories that you've had playing games. What was your first console that you played? What was the first game you played? Let me know. I'd like to hear it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next video.